Walk in the Cloud.
Everyone is talking cloud these days, but are they talking sense? In this series, we're talking transformation from a practical point of view, offering advice and examples to the executives who want to harness the power of the cloud for their businesses. This is Ellen Bencard with A Walk in the Cloud. Today, we're talking cloud security with Jane Franklin. Thanks for joining us, Jane. Security is inextricably linked to cloud discussions, but it's often a go-to excuse for why not to do the cloud. Before we dig into the topic, tell me why listeners should take your advice on it.
Yeah, so thanks, Ellen. I'm so happy to be here. So I am an award-winning cybersecurity entrepreneur, best-selling author, market influencer, and I'm also the managing director of Accenture's UK Applied Cybersecurity Services. So at Accenture, I'm responsible for building out cloud security, the human factor, governance, risk and compliance, data security, and platform security. And I've spent 23 years working in cybersecurity. I've built and sold my own global hacking firm and directed some of the world's most well-known consultancies. And through my career in companies, I've worked with clients to transform their security capabilities so that they become safer and more resilient. And I've also been very actively involved in leading industry accreditations, schemes and forums, judging awards, advising boards and awarding women's scholarships. So I'm very well known out there in the market as an influencer on the topics that I've just described a few minutes ago.
Fantastic. And let's talk a little bit about who we want to talk to in our walk. To keep things simple, I'm going to use the term CISOs, or Chief Information Security Officers, throughout our chat, but I know not every company has that specific role defined. Can we just start out with you giving us a general understanding of who in an organization you're usually working with? Who leads on cloud?
Yeah, absolutely. So we see a whole range of stakeholders leading with cloud. So for example, it could be driven by business units or the core IT function or security, as you've just said, with the CISOs. So in terms of stakeholders, we really do see a range. So it could be the chief information officers, the CIOs, the CTOs, the chief technology officers, the CISOs, as we've talked about, the CDOs, the chief data officers or data directors or heads of compliance, and the business or innovation leads.
Risk and being wary of risk runs through all of those people. So when we talk cloud, I know that the potential lack of security is often the first thing that comes up in their minds. Are CISOs the champions of anxiety?
Well, knowing them well, I think many of them would say yes, and I'm laughing at that, and I really shouldn't. It's an interesting thing that you've just said, because right now we have a huge number of cyber attacks coming at us. So at the moment, I looked at the data the other day actually, and we've got 375 cyber threats happening every single minute. And the predicted cost of cybercrime to the world is actually $11.2 million US per minute. And that is staggering. So that is increasing, as I said, all the time. So the pressure from the business to innovate, to transform and stay competitive is something that a CISO has to deal with all of the time. And often they get a really bad reputation for being disablers of the business or the department that likes to say no. But in reality, all they're doing is they're just looking at the risk and doing their job. So they're looking to reduce that risk. And they understand what the risks are, and they also are accountable for it. So unless the business stakeholders, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, actually take on that risk, they're responsible for them.
So Jane, how does a good CISO approach cloud to be an enabler and not that restrictor?
Yeah, so when it comes to your cloud first journey, there are 4 practical steps an organization can take. So the first is you've got to get a handle on your security posture. So that means identifying gaps and establishing an architecture for baseline cloud security that puts your technology's investment to work. The second step is to automate your organization's native security. So that means using the existing cloud native services like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud to automate your security. The third step is about being proactive with compliance rather than reactive. And this is a really big barrier for organizations. So it's really important to get this bit right. And cloud service providers can really help when it comes to this. They can help with aligning you with regulatory requirements. And then step four is the final step. So that is really all about where you employ security monitoring and response. And it's where you use security tools to address ever-evolving threats and complex regulatory requirements.
And can I pick on those evolving threats? What do you see as the greatest security risks in the cloud right now?
Yeah, well, when it comes to the risks, there are four risks. Again, it's not that I've got to think about the number four, but we've got the first risk really is where we're looking at a lack of understanding of cloud risks. And this is where we see senior executives who don't really understand these risks in the cloud or are choosing to ignore them, really believing that their cloud service providers have enabled adequate security, which we know that's not to be the case. Second challenge that we see is all to do with compliance and regulation, and this is the greatest barrier to realizing the full benefits of cloud. So buyers of cloud security services like CISOs really need to be able to communicate a transparent governance risk framework along with close monitoring and remediation of anomalies to maintain compliance. The third risk is around misconfigurations and misuse, and this is the number one risk in the cloud, and the media absolutely loves to report on it. So when I'm talking about this particular risk, I'm talking about things like misconfigured security groups, overly permissive accounts and roles, or data at rest encryption being disabled. And then the fourth risk is all to do with finding and retaining the right skills. So when it comes to cloud security, it is the number one most sought after talent. And even though we've got automation in the cloud to help with cybersecurity shortages of talent, organizations still need to look at this, and they need to be building new talent and ensuring the right skills are in place. And they need to do that. They need to be developing the right mindset, behaviors, and culture when it comes to operating a secure cloud environment.
And I know you've told me that when people are looking for that talent nowadays, the overwhelming majority is male, and that is a problem. And you've even founded an organization to help solve that. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe fundamentally that a failure to attract and retain women in cybersecurity is making us less safe. And that's not just something I'm saying for the sake of it. I've done a lot of research into this. I've got a best-selling book, and I've spent years, like I said, researching into this. So what we know from the data out there is that women do see risk in a different way to men. Women are really detailed in their exploration. They are more attuned to changing patterns of behaviors, which is a skill that we need in order to correctly identify threat actors and protect environments. Women can also they can remain calm during times of turbulence. So this is a skill that is required when breaches and major incidents occur. And the collective intelligence of a group increases when we have more women in a group. So it's not a case of women are better than men. It's just a case of, well, when we get a better balance, we can actually evolve and do a better job.
And the organization you founded is called?
There's a movement and a book, and the book and movement are called In Security.
So people can check out In Security to learn more about that, and we may even return to it in another podcast. But let's move back to the CISO in general and the skills that he or she needs to develop to make the most of the cloud. What's needed in this area that you don't see enough of right now?
Absolutely, leadership skills. This is the number one skill that a CISO needs to develop, and they need to develop it for several reasons. So often when I talk about this, I talk about developing what I call a high challenge and high support environment. And that is an environment where you actually enable a team to feel psychologically safe with you. So you are stretching them, you are developing them, you are enabling them, and you are supporting them. And you need to have high challenge and high support in equal doses. If you get an imbalance there, then you are not going to get a good delivery output. So too much support will enable a team to be too reliant on you and not good with change. And what we need when it comes to the cloud, and also in general anyway, because our environment is continually developing, we need practitioners who are really good with change. And as human beings, we work really hard to maintain the status quo and not to change. So we need a team who is very good at adapting and changing and being open, not closed, and being inquisitive. So those are the skills that are really needed. So really good, strong working habits, and also being open to learning, open to adapting, enabling psychological safety, and also being really effective communicators, because they are having to deal with multiple stakeholders and either sell into those stakeholders and explain, well, why do we need to do this? Why is it a good move? What are the challenges? What are the risks? And so on. And then also they need to be able to do that to the board. So they've got to have effective written and verbal communication skills so that they can communicate effectively with all of the stakeholders in an organization.
Well, Jane, thank you. I suspect that you gave our listeners a bit of a to-do list after this, but great information, and thank you for taking a walk with us today. Whether you're on the security team or someone whose work they keep safe, if Jane has piqued your interest, do follow her on LinkedIn. She's got a great feed. You might also want to take a look at Accenture's new research report on Secure Cloud, which you can find by going to accenture.com/Secure Cloud. Secure Cloud is all one word. On our next walk, we'll be exploring how data is the fuel that drives everything in the cloud, and why chief data officers are on the rise. With Accenture's Vikas Sindwani. Join us then.
Walk in the cloud.